Ooh, let's play. What's up, guys? Buckmars here with episode 32 of our Minecraft Let's Play series. It's been a crazy last few days. We had a marching band competition. I had the SAT, and we had a football game which we won 62-0, among other things. But I did want to read about a few things before I sort of got into the meat of this video. It's just a little magazine called Linux Voice that I have in front of me, and Civilization, which, as probably some of you know about, is basically a legendary turn-based strategy game in which you essentially build your civilization from the Stone Age to the Space Age, kind of like Command and Conquer or something like that. Where Command and Conquer is not as time-based; it's not based in history. Basically, this article is about it coming to Linux, which is another operating system that, again, probably none of you use. But me and my dad are heavily involved with it, so that's sort of our interest there. It's just there's a URL right at the end of the article. www.civilization.com. What is it? The next few articles are actually related to Minecraft, so that's why they're important. Um, we got Minecraft scripting. Uh, this is again on Linux. It's a Pi version of Minecraft. It's Raspberry Pi, so that's just wanted to sort of throw it out there. Definitely Google that if you're on Linux and you're more interested in that. And this is the main one that I wanted to talk about, Minetest. Um, this is a this is basically a delving away from um, Minecraft. I'm trying to see here. I think it's trying to get away from what Minecraft became, which was this massive thing, basically starting over. Of course, people who watch this video or other Minecraft Let's Plays know that you can build anything. um, Definitely, again, look up Minetest 0.4.1 is the version that it's up to now. And of course, this magazine, if you wanted to read more about Linux is definitely something that is, of course, also featured in. Sorry, Linux is obviously a very futuristic kind of OS, and then also it is featured in the Epic Rap Battles of History between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. It's that last thing that you see. Um, for people describe it as being really creepy, but I always found it awesome that they threw that in there. It's really cool. My dad, of course, loved it. And there's a little Skype window right there. My dad, of course, loved it because he's a big Linux guy. Definitely gets away from Microsoft and Apple, which are two just massive companies that basically own everything. Speaking of which, I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but Microsoft bought Minecraft. $2.6 billion. Mind blown. That basically blows. I think Tumblr was sold to Yahoo for 1.1 billion, so that blows that out of the water. But Minecraft is not even close to what Tumblr is. I still am not on Tumblr. A lot of younger people are. I think the sophomores and freshmen in my high school, especially, just kind of live on there. That's sort of the two grades that I've heard the most about it. The juniors and seniors don't seem to be as involved in it. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting to study demographics and who likes to do what. Anyway, we're about 4 minutes into this thing, so we're gonna jump right in. I don't know what I said that I'm doing in my last video. This weekend has been so crazy that I don't know. But yeah, so we found this little crazy little thing in the desert that I sort of wanted to build up on. I think I might have said in the last video that I will. Got no time to do that. I had no time over this weekend to do that. So we'll explore a little bit, you know. Um, it's definitely good while you're in your Minecraft world to expand and to sort of build up away from home because you're not going to be able to dominate the whole world, but you can try. um, and it's definitely cool to be able to try because it really sort of. Someone's texting me again. I don't know why people text me during this recording all the freaking time. Within the first 5 minutes of me starting the recording, someone texts me. Anyway, guess I'm a popular person. I like it. Anyway, we ended building this little wall of freedom over here. We're about to knock this down and really delve into this cave. Why is this zombie over here, though? Looks like someone was wandering around. Alright, let's go this way. We're gonna go into this massive room over here. Just sort of try to move in. I was actually I found a scary thing this past weekend. I've been so busy that I am one Rooster Teeth podcast behind. I'm actually watching the older one. So I'm like a week and a half behind. I've been watching a lot, just a ton of their GTA 5 content. There's a whole playlist, every single GTA 5 thing that they've done. It's awesome. I love it. Of course, I love basically anything the company does. But I was talking to my friend about this earlier, about just how much that company's impacted me, impacted people that I know. I've gone on about this so much on this video series. It's a big part of my life, and as I was saying to the guy, there's not a lot of people that I can connect with here that watch it. I mean, I've definitely told people about it. They're like, oh yeah, I'll totally check it out, and then they never do. Um, it's just sort of one of those things where I don't exactly struggle to connect with people, but it becomes a little bit more difficult because they're not interested in the same things that I'm interested in. I mean, YouTube is definitely big enough now where everyone has their own little niche part of it. Love that word niche. Um, it's the word of the day. No. Speaking of word of the day, SAT. October 11th was the most recent day for the SAT. There was a lot of people there. I think there were 600 people at the location. I was taking it alone. There was a good few thousand people at least that were taking it in my city. So we were all really nervous. We'd all been preparing so much, but I got in there and I think I did well. Um, of course, I noticed again the trend with guys. Guys didn't study for it as much as girls did. Yada yada yada. People, it's an interesting argument. People always when I bring up the differences in gender, people always say that I'm being sexist or something. I'm just sort of pointing out what I've noticed. This has just been sort of my personal experience. This isn't anything that's concrete. Whenever I discuss the difference in sexes, with the woman thing and the guy thing, like taking more notes, studying more, it has been a trend that I know a lot of teachers will also back up. I mean, I know one teacher specifically who was not afraid to. And speaking of teachers, I think it was this Friday. My forensics teacher, the one I go on and on and on about because he's so awesome. I had a bit of an informal moment with him, which was interesting. Of course, part of a class that goes on in my school is you build catapults. So we were working on that, and he makes a comment that none of us understand because a lot of what he says we don't understand just because it's references from back when he was a kid, like back from his sort of generation. And I just look over at him and I just say, "You know too much," and I just sort of laugh about it. But looking back on it, why did I make that comment? Because I sort of always had, as students do, they have a filter with most teachers. So why did it suddenly come down? It's just sort of an interesting question. At least for me, it's not interesting for anybody else. No one else ever asks these questions. People always look at me weird when I ask these questions, just like, why does that matter? But for me, it does. Because again, why did the filter just shatter for a second? Like, why did I feel so comfortable with him for about 5 seconds where I could just say whatever? It's interesting to me. Um, Again, not interesting to anybody else. This is also why when I have trouble connecting with people, I find different things interesting. Most people don't find how the human mind works. Most people don't find that very interesting. And if they do, it's for their own personal benefit, which leads into one of the topics that was discussed on in the SAT. We had to read a passage which was comparing individual gain versus the great gains of the group, like which one is more important, like which one do more people care about, and what kinds of things associate people with caring about their particular thing. Is that a silverfish? No, that's a block. I thought that was a silverfish. It got discolored right at the right moment for it to trick me. So that was really interesting timing. This is on normal. Whoops. I was checking to see if it was on normal, and I accidentally hit quit and save and quit. Whoops. Very professional. Yeah, normal. Okay. It's just I haven't seen many mobs in the past minute or so here. But yeah, no, it's bizarre. I already forgot what I was talking about. Trying to think here. Yesterday was awesome People usually look at me weird when I say that. I was out of the house by about 6:45 and didn't get back till about 1 or 1:30 in the morning. That is an awesome day to me. Where you're just out and about, just doing whatever. It was mostly marching band stuff, and then the SAT. That was basically it. But it was still fun. Just for placing record stuff, we got second out of I think 4 or 5 bands in our class. So not terrible, but not good either. I'd want first. Especially considering how long I've been doing this thing. I want to win. Our final competition is nicknamed Band Beat. I want to win that. I want to get first. I want to be, because again, my freshman year, which was sort of the year where we were the best because we still had our original band director, we got third. Okay, if we got third, then we can get first now. Wait, that was reversed. Anyway, though, I think you get my point. I want it. I want to get first place because that'd be nice. It'd be nice to say, for people to say, "Hey, what'd you win?" And we won first place out of like 10 or 15 different marching bands, and a lot of those bands have been our competition for the past few years. I know one in particular is like our rival school. Actually, one of my great friends. He's amazing. I am gonna call him amazing. He doesn't usually hear that from me very often, but he is. How should I refer to him? Was he the guy that named himself Igentix? I think it might have been. I don't remember. But he's one of those builder guys. He uses Minecraft for building a lot. We actually had a we've done a lot of little projects together. I met him through Science Olympiad a few years ago, and he is one of those crazy individuals. But he's a good friend to have. He does have a few annoying traits. Who doesn't, right? Who doesn't have traits that will eventually annoy you? But he's still an important person to me, and then treats me as if I'm important to him. So that's really cool that he does that. You don't meet a lot of people who do that anymore. Who genuinely care about you. Is sort of my point. I'm just glad that I'm one of those people that he still genuinely cares about. I don't even know if he watches these videos or not. I assume he doesn't. Actually, he might. I'll give him more credit than that. He might. But I'll just mention him as like, hey, I mentioned you in my most recent video. Usually when I say that to people, they freak out. They're like, what did you say? But it's just like, just go watch the video. Like, I'm not going to come out here and rant about you. That's not true. I'm not going to come on here and just destroy you verbally over the internet. That's just not something that I enjoy doing on a regular basis. But will I talk about people that, I enjoy being around? Yes. Will I talk about people that are important to me? Yes. It's just sort of how I am. It actually pissed off one of my friends, and, she knows who she is, because I sort of had like a 5-minute just like spiel about her. And, she wasn't exactly comfortable with that. Which is completely understandable. Probably freaked her the heck out because, again, she's not. Like, I've noticed this with a lot of people is that they're not exactly confident with being talked about because they're not used to guys talking about them positively. Which for some people I know is kind of weird. But for others it's completely normal. I know a lot of popular girls at school who have just gone through like 10 boyfriends, and it's just like, okay, you're just gonna eat people up like that. There's actually one that I know who's just a bit of a sociopath. Me and her haven't talked much this year. But good God, she's probably one of the more good-looking girls of the grade, and she just eats people up, essentially. Which is not a terrible thing, but at the same time, it's just like you got to be careful. Because if you're not careful, she will destroy you. So yeah, there's that. But that does describe a lot of people in general. If you're not careful, they will destroy you. And I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just being realistic. That's a lot of people call me a pessimist, and it's just I've sort of lived for 19 years. I know what I'm talking about. Maybe like a little bit, like the tiniest little bit. I don't claim to know everything. I know some people think I do claim to know everything. I don't. Like, if someone has a new idea or a new way of looking at something, I'm like, okay, go explain this to me. Sometimes people are scared to. Some people are like, oh, you won't understand, or oh no, you'll get offended. Actually, there was one person I was talking to yesterday on the way to our competition who was just like, I don't want to talk about that, you'll get offended. And I just looked at her and I was just like, there is literally no way you could offend me. I immediately went for the extreme. I said, you could tell me that, the Jews deserve to die in the Holocaust, and I'd be like, oh, okay, why? Like, I just immediately went for the extreme, and I was just like, you could say the most offensive thing in the world, and I'll just ask why. And of course, if someone doesn't answer that, then I get upset. Like, when I get upset when people are ignorant. I get upset when people don't have a good reasoning behind something. That happens with people a lot when they're talking about me. Like, someone will call me weird or someone will call me creepy, and I'll go, okay, what do I do that's creepy? And they'll go, oh, just you in general. It's like, yeah, that's a brilliant answer. I know one person in particular who does this. She in particular, she doesn't really have a right to call someone else weird because she is weird herself, but that's just another thing. I'm ranting again. I apologize. It doesn't seem like, because people call it ranting, it doesn't seem like I'm ranting. It just seems like I'm just talking. But I guess because I'm just talking about one specific subject, I just keep jumping from subject to subject. I guess it does come across as a rant. So I apologize. I digress. Again, I haven't been talking about what we've been doing in this video. We're just basically exploring this cave. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. Um, Again, I don't usually like to talk about what you guys see because I assume you're watching. So I'd like to talk about something beyond what you're seeing. That's why I read those little articles from the magazine, because it's like, oh, you guys probably don't have this magazine. It's just extra information. I've also gone back into Twitter, so maybe, Wednesday, maybe I'll have some headlines via Twitter, and it's just what I follow on Twitter, mostly political stuff, mostly, I know Anonymous is on that list, I got Alex Jones somewhere on there, I got Glenn Beck somewhere on there, I think I follow CNN? I might have at one point. Just, it's good to know what the enemy are saying, the Communist News Network and whatnot. But again, people take jabs at Fox News too, so they're both bad in their own way, and they're both good in their own way. It's interesting to compare, to objectively compare different news outlets, simply because they've got different, they're generating income from different places. They got different sponsors. They have different things that they can report about and can't report about. That's why it's sort of the mainstream media, as they're called, is sort of hated because they don't zoom in on sort of the small issues that are happening behind closed doors. Speaking of small issues that are happening behind closed doors, I think one kid from school was telling me he's in the AP Bio class, and he was telling me about a project that he had. He was able to choose a disease that's affecting humans now, and he chose Ebola. Apparently, the U.S. government, has bred a strand of Ebola that, if released to the public, is airborne, which means you can get it just sort of by being around it in the air. That is incredibly scary. First of all, what is Ebola? All I know about it, I haven't done my own research. I honestly don't want to because I don't want to scare myself. Because I know it will. I know the first emotion I'll feel is fear, and I don't want that to sort of overwhelm me. What I do know about it, though, is if you get it, you die. Essentially, I think there's a 45 to 90% just death rate by getting it. So you have about a half a chance of surviving. Is sort of the best case scenario. And that's if you get help for it, like, the second you get it. But again, this virus, Ebola, you might not know you have it until, like, 2 months afterward. I think the guy said 61 days is the maximum. If you're still fine after 61 days of being exposed to it, you don't have it. 61 days is a long time. People have actually been quarantined for that amount of time. It's just like, good lord. I think a few countries have just sort of been shut down, and people are just going from house to house being like, do you have Ebola? And, like, trying to make sure. But then someone, I saw this on Instagram from, it's a guy called Regular Big Rob. He was one of Ray William Johnson's friends in the vlogs back on Breaking LA. I think it's what he eventually called the series Breaking LA, I'm not sure. And it said, oh, Americans are screaming about Ebola. We still drink, we still are fat, and we do all of this stuff that has a much higher killing rate. It's like, oh, this kills so many more people, but we're still doing that, and then we're yelling about Ebola. So it's an interesting scenario. I, of course, loved seeing that. I was like, okay, this is cool. Of course, people can be very inventive. The American mind is just one of the weirdest minds ever. Of course, I have an American mind, so that's why it's so much fun to make fun of it. Born Canadian, but raised American. It's a very interesting fusion of cultures and just way of life. Because up in Canada, the other language is French. But down here, it's Spanish. Just that in itself is so much more different. Because, with Spanish, you've just immediately got Mexico. It's like, oh, hello! Like, that's its own separate issue entirely. It's just that country. And the existence thereof is just such a separate issue. Well, not really issue. Separate subject. I don't look at the existence of Mexico as an issue. That's like, I guess, the highest insult ever. Like, we look at the existence of a country as an issue. It's just like, why? Why exactly is that? I guess North Korea is an issue. I guess that qualifies as an issue. I can say that with certainty. Because those guys are basically brainwashed over there to love their leader and all that stuff. That's a bit far. Indoctrination. That's a bit far. Essentially enslavement of the free will. That's a no-no for me. There's just certain things that just make me hate world leaders above all others. That's one of them. When you sort of indoctrinate your population. Guess what other country's doing that? America! So, and yes, I do laugh at my own jokes. It's pretty terrible. I already talked about that, though. I laugh at my own jokes. Sometimes they're just funny, you know? I think the first person that sort of got me onto this indoctrination timeline, and you can claim that this, what I'm about to say, is also indoctrination. Why not? It's a free country, you can do whatever. But again, research and whatnot, Glenn Beck. I think about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, he was talking about the video where the kids are singing about Barack Obama and basically praising Obama. Someone posted that on Facebook a few months ago, and I'm like, this video is like 5 or 6 years old. It was weird seeing that video popping in. It's like, oh, I just found this. It's like, that's been around for a while. It was really surreal because, again, if you know me, I've sort of been living on the internet for the past few years, but I've also been able to socialize somewhat. So I've been able to sort of live both worlds. I know of all the original YouTubers, almost all of them. And, I haven't really been able to follow the evolution of YouTube, mostly because I don't want to. I don't really want YouTube to change. I love the old one rather than the new one. But that's just me. That's just sort of my, I will use the word bias, because it is. And, I recognize that. And I say, okay, why do I love it so much? And it just comes up with this reason, like, oh, this because of this. And then, why do I love this? Oh, because of this. And it just sort of evolves from there. I've talked about random people. Here's someone no one's ever heard of ever. Fruba Girl. That was just a whole other situation. I can get into it in a future video if you guys want. But again, it's one of those, another weird corner of YouTube that people are like, why do you go to that? Like, why do you like this? Like, this is weird. It's just like, come on. Like, grow up a little bit. Obviously, they don't sound like that. They say, okay, that's a little creepy. That's a little weird. Why do you do this? It's like, grow up a little bit. Be open to what other people do. Obviously, don't accept genocide and whatnot. Unless you want to, that's your prerogative. And if you do accept genocide, then I'll obviously be against you. Okay, that's just a brief interruption. But yeah, no. If you do agree with genocide, I'll obviously be against you, because genocide is just really not a good idea. Of course, genocide was essentially the Holocaust all over again. Or what? Here's a question: how do you differentiate between homicide and genocide? I think homicide is a very specific situation, whereas genocide, I think, is like a overall. I think that's sort of the world accepted definition. Again, I'm not sure. You guys can sort of use the internet and figure that out on your own. But this has been a long video. I've definitely enjoyed it. Again, more exploring of that in the future, and hopefully I'll get some of this built up. If not, we can build it in the video. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 32 of my Minecraft Let's Play series. I'll obviously link the epic rap battle that I mentioned in the description below, because I just want to do that. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Yep, with episode 33. Let's stop.